Hi, this is Charles Kelly. Welcome to Money Tips, bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate, and obviously enjoy more money. I've been away for a couple of days, updating my knowledge on a property course, so that I can keep up to date with things and also pass things on to you, and any tips that I pick up. And I'll be going through those in the next few days, because I know a lot of you are interested in property and maybe are investing in property, or maybe saving up to buy a house. So thanks for everyone tuning in on Facebook Live, and on my podcast, which is on iTunes and Stitcher. And you can read my blog on moneytipsdaily.com. Well, today I want to talk about your credit rating, which is important as most people would imagine, but not really as vital as people can realise until they lose their credit rating. Now, credit ratings are made up based on information that you get from various credit rating agencies, and you get what's called a credit. It's more of a credit score, which can be from between 1 and 1,000, and you can find this out yourself by writing to any of the credit reference agencies, Experian, Equifax, or if you Google it, you can find usually a company that will do all three for a fee, or you can pay a monthly or an annual fee to have it checked regularly. So you can actually see what's on there, and on your credit file, if you like, if you get a copy of your credit file, you will see what you owe on credit cards, whether you've been late with payments, whether you've missed payments. You'll usually see larger loans like mortgages and personal loans, and you'll be surprised to see what's on there. So it's important that you don't miss payments, for instance, because you might think, I haven't missed a payment, I was just a few weeks late. Well, they can be recorded as missed payments, even though you might think they're just a bit late, that they can be recorded as, and you'll see on your credit file, if you've missed any payment, it will just say missed payment. So technically you're in arrears with that loan or with that payment. And in fact, on the BBC today, they highlight a case of a young lady who shops on a website called Klarna, which, to be honest, I'd never heard of. But it's a scheme where you can buy now and pay later. You can order things, try them on, and if you don't like them, then you can just send them back or pay later. And she was saving up to buy a house with some friends, and she checked her credit rate and it looked okay at one stage, and then it halved. And then when she looked into why her credit score had gone down from this to that, it'd gone down so much, she couldn't really understand it. And then she realised that she was late with these payments on these clothing things. So she'd get a few clothes, maybe think about it, and then she said, well, I was late a few times, but I didn't think it really mattered. I wasn't too worried because, they just said, they sent me a letter and said, you've got to pay within a week. And she said, I was quite naive, yeah, really, and I didn't think these little purchases would affect me so much, usually between £20 and £80. If I would have known, I would have just used my credit card. And she got letters saying her payments were overdue, right? So she had the letter saying your payments are overdue. Now, that I don't know how much more plain that can be in English. Your payments are overdue. And all they say is if you've missed a payment, you have one extra week. That's not much information then, is it really? It's not much information, is it really? Well, I think it is enough. They're giving you a bit of time to pay it, but you're still late. And what these companies usually do is report it, because they feed it back to the credit reference agencies. So if you imagine the credit reference and agencies, one of them used to be called the United Association for Protection of Traders, and all the information is fed in to this one source. So to protect traders, because if someone is going to get credit from John Lewis and then he goes to get credit from Debenhams, and then he gets a higher purchase from another store and they don't know about it, then it could affect the traders, because they could just run off and not pay. So this thing was set up called the United Association for Protection of Traders, and all the information is fed in now on a computer, obviously, and probably much of it automatically. And then, so if somebody's late, they report you to the credit referencing agency to protect others, and also because if they're going to be getting information, they have to exchange information as well. So when you apply for an in-store card or a credit card, they look up your credit rating, and credit score, and this is much of it is made up on how good you are with making payments. So she wasn't making the payments on time, so it was coming up as a missed payment. She thought £20, £30, what would that matter? But it does matter, because if you can't be frugal with £20, if you can't handle £20 payment, how are you going to handle a mortgage of £500 or £1,000 a month? And in fact, some debt charities, Step Change, the Money Advice Trust, said that companies need to make it clearer at the outset, and they say their adverts are misleading. Well, I don't know. I mean, you buy now, you pay later, but you've got to pay. Not pay later meaning pay late. It means pay later after you've got the stuff. I mean, is that clear to you and me? For me, it's clear. Buy now, pay later doesn't mean buy now and pay late, right? So there you go. Now, the credit score is made up of other things. It's, for instance, like some of the things that could affect your credit score is whether you're on the voters list. Do you vote? Are you on the voters register? Because that shows in theory where you live. Because if you're on a voters list, then that should be where you live, your residence. So if you don't appear on the voters list, maybe because you're a student or something, you may have a low credit rating. Other things could affect your score is, whether you've had credit before and whether you've paid that credit off. If you've never had credit before, there's nothing really much to score you on. So it's good to have if you don't use credit cards, it's good to have one credit card and maybe buy things and pay it off, but always pay it off at the end of the month. Don't get into debt that you can't handle. And other things that might affect it, how long you've been at your address, your job, and that sort of thing can all affect this. But the main thing you've got to watch is making sure that you pay things on time. So your credit card, for instance, the good idea is to set up direct debits to pay your minimum amounts on your credit card so you never miss it. Because if you go into the bank and to pay your credit card over the counter, and let's say you've got a balance of £500 and you say, I'm paying £200 now, and the due date is the 30th of the month, and you go in on the 30th of the month thinking, I've got it, I paid it on time. Well, you haven't, because it will say on the back of the form, it might take X amount of days to reach us, and it could take a week before they register it as paid, and in that time you're technically late. So, and if you're doing this month after month, or you're late with other bills like your gas bill, your water, or you don't pay your water but they have to keep writing to you, then it will lead to a bad credit score. Obviously, more serious things on your credit file will be something called a county court judgment, which means you haven't paid it at all and the company has to take you to court. And a county court in this case, it's not like a criminal court with wigs and barristers and that sort of thing. But if you go to a county court and you still don't pay it and you've lost the case and you still don't pay it, then a county court judgment will be registered against you. I think you've got 30 days to pay it, or 14 days, maybe 30 days. But if you don't pay it, then they register a county court judgment, or a CCJ for short, against you for that amount. And even if then you pay it after it's been registered, you pay it off, it will then show as satisfied, but it's still been registered, and it will show on your credit file for 6 years, right? 6 years. And that will make it very difficult for you to get a mortgage. It will make it difficult to get a phone contract. Even renting a flat or a house will become difficult if they're referencing you with a credit reference agencies. So really got to be very careful about that. So if you get a letter saying you're in arrears, don't ignore it. Don't just leave it there and be frightened to open it because it's bad news. Open the letter and deal with it, and let the company know what you're doing and how you're going to pay it. Don't let it go all the way to court, because you have enough warning on this before you go to court. They don't immediately take you to court. They write to you, you're 14 days late, you're 30 days. Unless we hear from you, then we'll have no further option but to take legal action. Then you might get a letter from, they might pass it out to a debt collecting agency, and they write to you and say, we're going to take legal action. So people have ample warning before, and then eventually the debt collecting agency will issue a county court summons. And then even then people ignore that, they don't turn up, and then the judgment is registered against them. I know, because I've chased people for money, and I know exactly what happens. Everyone is given warning about this, and they get letters from the court as well saying there's a judgment, a summons has been registered against you, or a claim has been registered against you, and you'll get a letter from the court. Then if you ignore that, the hearing will go ahead without you. So you must keep on top of these things, and the best way is to make sure you don't get into debt at all. But there's another little slippery thing that can happen to you, and that's called a default, or it will appear on your credit file as a DF. Now, this can be issued by credit card companies without going to court. If you're late and a certain amount of time after you haven't paid, they might send you a letter saying you haven't paid this debt, you haven't paid any payments, you ignore it, it goes on for another couple of weeks, and then they'll say, unless you pay this, we're going to issue a default against you in conjunction with the Consumer Credit Act, and that is like a county court judgment. If they press the button and issue a default against you, it's like having a county court judgment, and it will stay on your file for 6 years, and even when you pay it off, it's still there. So imagine for 6 years you can't get a decent mortgage, you can't get a flat to rent, you can't get another credit card. It's going to be very, very difficult. So don't let yourself get in that position, and don't be like this girl and say, oh, I didn't realise, I thought if I was late I could still pay it next week because it's buy now, pay later. But it's not later, it's not late, it's later. So make sure you pay these things, okay? And don't get yourself into that. I write about this in my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness. I say in there, guard your credit rating with your life. Keep on top of your money, keep on top of the situation so that you don't get yourself into problems. And, you know, I was on a property investor course this week, and really your credit rating then becomes very, very important when you want to become an investor, because you're going to borrow money. And lenders will lend you money if you're trustworthy, if they think you can pay it back. So if you can pay back for a Klarna coat or a pair of shoes, and you can pay that £30 or £50, then you're considered credit worthy and trustworthy. But if you can't even pay that, how are they going to lend you hundreds of thousands of pounds to buy property? It doesn't work like that, does it? So then you've got to, it's like your reputation, your credit score and your credit file is like your reputation. So guard your reputation. It's very easy to ruin your reputation, because later on you might become an investor, and then you need to go to banks and borrow quite large sums of money in some cases, or you might be borrowing from angel investors or private investors, and they want to know that you're trustworthy. So that's all for now. Thanks for listening. If you do want to know how you can get into property, how you can become an investor, we have a few taster courses coming up, which are like Discovery Days taster courses, which you can go along for free and get an idea of whether you want to go into it further and learn more. So let me know if you're interested in those. They'll be coming up. There might be some coming up before Christmas, otherwise it'll be after Christmas. But just drop me a line at charles@charleskelly.net or on my Facebook Messenger. So thanks for everyone who tuned in there on Facebook Live. Thanks very much, and thanks for all the people on my podcast. And I can see here Magnolia, Sam, hi, David, not long time no see, Jins, Villa, Giuseppe, Ross. Thanks for all tuning in there, and great to see you and to connect with you. So I'll speak to you again in another day or so, and bye for now. This is Charles Kelly, bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate and enjoy more money. So protect your credit rating. Don't let it drop. Guard it with your life. Bye for now.